The intelligence briefing that reached SS Obergruppenführer Paul Hauser at German 7th Army headquarters in Lamar, France, carried reports that seemed impossible. The date was July 20th, 1944. 6 weeks had passed since D-Day. Friedrich Dollmann's replacement studied the documents with mounting disbelief. What lay before him challenged everything the Wehrmacht understood about military logistics. Hastily scribbled margin notes would later surface in captured German archives. The notes revealed growing panic among German commanders. American forces were achieving supply rates that defied all known military doctrine. Forward observers and intercepted radio transmissions painted a picture that contradicted 4 years of Wehrmacht battlefield experience. The reports documented something extraordinary happening behind American lines. Soldiers engaged in brutal hedgerow combat across Normandy were receiving far more than ammunition and fuel. Hot meals arrived daily. Fresh bread appeared at forward positions. Mail from home reached troops under fire. Most incredibly, women in Red Cross uniforms were serving donuts within range of German artillery. The first Red Cross Clubmobile had landed just 4 days earlier on July 16th. These converted trucks represented something German commanders couldn't comprehend. American planners had deemed comfort items essential enough to merit precious Atlantic shipping space. To Wehrmacht officers who had stripped basic necessities from their soldiers for operational efficiency, this resource allocation seemed like madness. What they failed to understand was revolutionary thinking in action. They were witnessing American industrial logic applied to warfare itself. The ability to deliver luxuries under combat conditions wasn't separate from military capability. It was military capability expressed in its ultimate form. An army that could provide fresh donuts, while under artillery fire, could certainly provide unlimited ammunition when needed. German confidence in American logistical weakness ran deep through military doctrine. Since 1940, Wehrmacht intelligence had systematically studied American military planning. Their assessments remained uniformly dismissive year after year. Foreign Army's West Intelligence Section operated under Oberst Alexis von Rohen. Their reports consistently identified American dependence on material comfort as a critical vulnerability. The mathematics appeared to support German assumptions completely. Captured American military planning documents from a destroyed glider in Sicily revealed shocking supply requirements. U.S. forces needed approximately 45 pounds of supplies per soldier daily. Wehrmacht allocations ranged from 9.3 pounds when inactive to 20 pounds during normal operations. German commanders who had survived Russian winters on far less viewed this as proof of American softness. General Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt commanded German forces in the West. His May 1944 Staff Conference remarks, recorded by his Chief of Staff General Gunther Blumentritt, reflected typical Wehrmacht thinking. The Americans require 3 times our supply tonnage. They approach war as purely material contest. We proved in Russia that will conquers material advantages. When their elaborate supply systems encounter battlefield friction, collapse becomes inevitable. This wasn't propaganda designed for public consumption. It reflected genuine German military philosophy developed through years of continental warfare. Wehrmacht doctrine emphasized Auftragstaktik, initiative, improvisation, and austerity combined into tactical excellence. German soldiers trained to live off conquered territory. They learned to operate independently when supply lines were severed. They continued fighting without regular resupply. American insistence on maintaining supply chains for items Germans considered luxuries seemed to validate Nazi propaganda about democratic decadence. Chocolate, cigarettes, writing paper. These appeared frivolous to officers accustomed to hardship. Wehrmacht logistics officers had performed detailed calculations on American invasion plans. Major Heinrich von Stülpnagel served with Army Group B's supply staff. His captured analyses showed the mathematical impossibility of American ambitions. To supply 12 divisions across open beaches would require 8,400 tons daily. No military force in history had achieved even half this tonnage without established port facilities. The Americans claimed they would accomplish this feat while under constant enemy fire. The calculations declared it mathematically impossible. What German intelligence failed to grasp was the unprecedented scale of American preparation. For 2 full years, the United States had transformed Britain into what General Eisenhower described as one gigantic military base. By June 1944, American and British forces had stockpiled 2.5 million tons of supplies across England. This represented enough material to fill a freight train stretching from London to Edinburgh and back again. The invasion fleet crossing on June 6th constituted the largest naval operation in human history. 6,039 vessels participated, including 4,126 specialized landing craft. Beyond these impressive numbers lay innovations German planners hadn't imagined possible. Among the specialized vessels were LSTs, landing ship tank, converted into floating kitchens. These ships carried complete ranges and ovens capable of baking fresh bread while crossing the English Channel. U.S. Navy records show LST-357 had been modified with refrigeration units maintaining 32-degree temperatures during the Channel crossing. LST-491 carried a complete field bakery designed to be operational within hours of beaching. These weren't emergency improvisations made under battlefield pressure. They represented planned resource allocations that German doctrine would have dismissed as wasteful luxury. German E-boat patrols, encountering invasion convoys, reported puzzling observations that defied explanation. Korvettenkapitän Friedrich Hoffmann commanded E-boat flotilla S-130. His war diary entries noted unusual vessels in Allied convoys. These appeared to be modified merchant ships painted military gray. Their purpose remained unknown, but they emitted smoke similar to factory vessels. By June 26, 1944, D+20, American logistics had achieved what German doctrine declared impossible. Despite ongoing combat operations and without capturing a single major port, Americans were landing average daily supplies of 15,000 tons across Normandy beaches. For perspective, the entire German Army Group B in France was receiving 8,000 tons weekly. Quartermaster Corps records show mobile bakeries operational at both Omaha and Utah beaches by this date. Each facility produced 60,000 pounds of fresh bread daily. This wasn't the hard biscuit sustaining German troops across Europe. American soldiers received fresh white and whole wheat bread, baked overnight, and distributed warm to frontline units each morning. German intelligence officers couldn't reconcile their observations with established military doctrine. Hauptmann Franz Gockel served as intelligence officer with the 352nd Infantry Division. His June 28th report to superiors, captured from division headquarters, revealed German bewilderment. American soldiers in forward positions received packaged meals containing canned meat, vegetables, crackers, candy, and cigarettes. Each individual meal contained more variety than German troops had seen in months of combat. American soldiers discarded half-eaten rations that Wehrmacht soldiers would consider feast items. The speed of American supply establishment defied all Wehrmacht experience from previous campaigns. By June 30th, Americans had landed 71,000 vehicles and 488,000 tons of supplies across the beachhead. They had established 97 separate supply dumps throughout the invasion area. The German invasion of Norway in 1940 conducted against minimal opposition through captured ports, had required 3 weeks to achieve comparable tonnage levels. German dismissal of American logistics capabilities extended to artificial harbors known as Mulberries. Wehrmacht intelligence had identified construction components in British ports through aerial reconnaissance missions. The German naval assessment remained consistently dismissive of the concept. Admiral Friedrich Ruge served as Rommel's naval advisor. His May 20th briefing to Army Group B addressed artificial harbor possibilities, according to his post-war memoirs. The concept appeared theoretically possible but practically limited by natural conditions. Atlantic storms and English Channel tides would restrict any temporary structure to minimal operational capacity. German estimates projected maximum daily throughput of 1,000 tons under ideal weather conditions. By June 18th, American Mulberry A at Omaha Beach achieved full operational status. Initial capacity reached 3,000 tons daily before ramping up to 7,000 tons, 7 times German estimates. The harbor consisted of 600,000 tons of concrete formed into caissons, 180,000 tons of steel components, and floating roadways accommodating 2,000 vehicles daily. German observers were stunned by the engineering achievement they witnessed. Oberst Hans von Luck commanded the 21st Panzer Division operating near British Mulberry B. His post-war memoirs captured German amazement at American capabilities. Through field glasses, they watched an entire harbor materialize from nothing over several days. Ships unloaded directly onto floating roads that adjusted automatically with changing tides. Trucks drove from ship to shore without stopping for loading or unloading. Within 1 week, the Allies had created port facilities exceeding many established French harbors in capacity and efficiency. The psychological impact on German defenders was immediate and profound. The Mulberries represented more than logistics capability. They demonstrated complete engineering dominance over natural obstacles. If Americans could construct harbors from nothing in open ocean, what engineering challenges couldn't they overcome through industrial power? July 16, 1944, marked a watershed moment in military logistics history. German commanders would later identify this date as psychologically devastating to Wehrmacht morale. The first Red Cross Clubmobile landed on French soil. The vehicle, nicknamed Daniel Boone, landed at Utah Beach, and within hours was serving fresh donuts and hot coffee to combat troops. German intelligence initially dismissed reports of women serving refreshments near front lines as Allied propaganda. Oberst Friedrich von Mellenthin served as intelligence officer with Panzer Group West. His July 20th assessment reflected German skepticism about American operations. Reports of American women operating mobile canteens in combat zones were either false intelligence or indicated American command incompetence endangering civilian personnel. The reports were completely accurate. Within 1 week of the first arrival, 12 clubmobiles were operating across Normandy battlefields. These specially modified GMC trucks carried donut-making equipment, coffee urns, and serving windows designed for rapid service. Each vehicle could produce 2,000 donuts and 500 gallons of coffee daily, while operating within range of German artillery. 3-woman crews worked under constant danger, following combat units as they advanced through enemy territory. American soldier letters captured by German intelligence revealed the profound psychological impact of these operations. Private James Morrison of the 4th Infantry Division wrote home on July 22nd. His letter was found on his body after the St. Vith battle. The letter revealed American soldier morale impossible for Germans to comprehend. Yesterday he had received fresh donuts and real coffee served by American girls, exactly like the corner shop back home. The encounter occurred maybe 5 miles from active front lines. Germans were shelling the road behind the serving area, while these women joked and served donuts like attending a church social gathering. By August 25, 1944, as American forces liberated Paris, German logistics officers faced mathematical equations they couldn't solve. The U.S. Third Army under General Patton was advancing so rapidly that Wehrmacht doctrine insisted it must halt for resupply operations. German experience from Russian campaigns proved mechanized forces couldn't operate more than 200 miles from supply bases without operational pause. General der Panzertruppen Heinrich Eberbach submitted his assessment to OKW, Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, on August 24th. His analysis, found in captured German archives, demonstrated German inability to understand American capabilities. American spearheads were operating 400 miles from their original beaches. Every calculation indicated they must halt within 48 hours for supply accumulation. Their fuel consumption alone exceeded any possible delivery capacity through conventional military logistics. 24 hours later, German reconnaissance reported something unprecedented in military history. An endless stream of trucks moved on designated one-way highways, operating continuously around the clock. The Red Ball Express had begun operations that would shatter German understanding of logistics possibilities forever. Verified statistics of Red Ball Express operations defied German comprehension of what was militarily possible. 5,958 trucks operated by 23,000 drivers delivered up to 12,342 tons of supplies daily. Peak delivery was achieved August 29th under combat conditions. Trucks ran constantly on 700-mile round-trip routes. Drivers were changed like relay racers, while vehicles received service while rolling continuously. Transportation Corps records show 75% of drivers were African American soldiers segregated into trucking companies, but proving essential to Allied victory. These units maintained operational tempo, German logistics officers calculated as impossible under any circumstances. Trucks averaged 240 miles per day, while operating on 4 hours of sleep per driver rotation. German logistics doctrine, refined through years of continental warfare, had established clear mathematical limits for sustained military operations. Wehrmacht tables captured at various headquarters showed their fundamental calculations governing all operational planning. A mechanized division required 300 tons of supplies daily during combat operations, 100 tons when holding static positions. Delivery capacity decreased 30% for every 100 kilometers distance from established supply bases. Beyond 300 kilometers from supply sources, sustained offensive operations became mathematically impossible according to all German military experience. Americans shattered every assumption underlying German military planning. By September 1944, they were delivering 20,000 tons daily to forces operating 500 miles from invasion beaches. A single American armored division consumed 750 tons daily and received every ounce needed for sustained operations. First Army alone burned 800,000 gallons of gasoline daily, more than entire Wehrmacht Western Front weekly allocation. General Major Fritz Bayerlein commanded remnants of Panzerlehr Division when he made bitter assessment in letter to his wife. The letter was found after his capture by advancing American forces. His words reflected growing German despair at facing industrial warfare. They were no longer fighting soldiers, but confronting an industrial process beyond military comprehension. Americans didn't defeat German forces in traditional battle. They overwhelmed German resistance with unlimited trucks carrying unlimited supplies. September 1944 brought reports German engineers refused to believe possible. American forces were constructing fuel pipelines from invasion beaches directly to advancing armies hundreds of miles inland. The pipeline under the ocean, or Pluto, and its land extensions seemed like fantasy to Wehrmacht officers struggling to maintain horse-drawn supply columns. Major Hans Thyssen was a Wehrmacht engineer who had built fuel depots across occupied Europe through 4 years of warfare. His September 10th analysis, submitted to OKW, was captured at Aachen and revealed German inability to comprehend American engineering capabilities. Pipeline construction required specialized steel, precision joints, and pumping stations every 30 kilometers for sustained operations. Americans claimed to be laying 50 kilometers of pipeline daily, using prefabricated sections manufactured in England. This exceeded German peak construction rates by a factor of 10 under ideal peacetime conditions. The first Pluto line achieved operational status September 22nd, initially delivering 56,000 gallons daily to Cherbourg port facilities. By October, with multiple pipeline systems operational, daily delivery reached 300,000 gallons across the battlefield. By March 1945, the complete system would achieve full design capacity of 1 million gallons daily. This exceeded fuel consumption of entire German army groups operating across multiple fronts simultaneously. The psychological impact on German defenders was absolutely devastating to military morale. Oberst Hermann Balck was considered one of Germany's finest tactical commanders throughout the war. His post-war interrogation revealed the psychological effect of American logistics supremacy. When German forces learned Americans were pumping fuel directly from England to their tank units, they knew the war was definitively lost. You cannot defeat an enemy who eliminates geography as a limiting factor through industrial engineering. Nothing demonstrated American logistics supremacy more dramatically than Thanksgiving 1944 operations. With armies stretched from Holland to Switzerland across multiple fronts, the Quartermaster Corps attempted something unprecedented in military history. They planned to serve traditional Thanksgiving dinner to every American soldier in Europe on the same day. Nearly 2 million men would receive identical meals, despite being scattered across an entire continent under combat conditions. General der Panzertruppen Hasso von Manteuffel was secretly preparing the Ardennes offensive when he received intelligence reports he initially dismissed as deception. His G2 intelligence summary for November 20th, discovered in captured German records, reflected German disbelief. Agents reported massive shipments of frozen turkeys to American forces throughout Europe. This appeared to be an elaborate deception operation designed to hide offensive preparations from German intelligence services. It wasn't deception, but genuine American logistics capability applied to military morale. The cargo ship SS Great Republic had departed New York on October 15th, carrying 1,604 tons of frozen turkey meat. The ship arrived at Le Havre on November 16th with cargo intact. Additional shipments brought cranberry sauce, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, and all traditional accompaniments for complete Thanksgiving meals. Special refrigerated trains and trucks maintained cold chain integrity from European ports to frontline positions. On November 23, 1944, American soldiers in foxholes facing the Siegfried Line ate turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie. Units under sporadic German artillery fire received hot meals served under combat conditions. The 30th Infantry Division held defensive positions near Aachen while receiving complete Thanksgiving dinners despite ongoing German shelling of their sector. The psychological warfare was unintentional but absolutely devastating to German morale. Captured American soldiers interrogated after Thanksgiving consistently mentioned the holiday meal during questioning. They inadvertently revealed American supply capabilities to increasingly demoralize German interrogators who hadn't seen such food in years. The winter of 1944-45 was the coldest European winter in 50 years. German commanders remembered Wehrmacht collapse during Russian winters and expected American forces to suffer similarly under harsh conditions. The Ardennes offensive was partly predicated on assumed American inability to rapidly supply winter equipment to exposed forces fighting in Belgium. Instead, Americans launched emergency supply operations, delivering 2 million sets of winter clothing in 3 weeks. These shipments included innovations unknown to German forces despite their Russian experience. Layered clothing systems, shoe packs with removable felt liners, sleeping bags rated to -30 Fahrenheit, and portable squad stoves for individual units. General der Infanterie Baptist Knies commanded 85th Corps during German operations. His December 1944 report to Army Group B, found in captured records, revealed German amazement at American supply capabilities under siege conditions. American troops in Bastogne received airdropped supplies despite complete encirclement by German forces. Containers included medical supplies, ammunition, winter clothing, and personal mail from home. German troops supplied from their own depots lacked basic winter equipment. The Bastogne airlift demonstrated American logistics flexibility impossible under German military doctrine. C-47 transport aircraft dropped 1,246 tons of supplies in 8 days to the surrounded 101st Airborne Division under constant German fire. Color-coded parachutes identified container contents for rapid distribution. Red parachutes carried ammunition. Blue carried medical supplies. Yellow carried food rations. White carried winter clothing and equipment. The precision and volume of air supply exceeded total German airborne resupply capabilities for the entire Western Front. March 1945 brought operations at the Rhine crossing, Germany's last major natural barrier against Allied advance. Wehrmacht doctrine, based on their own 1940 river crossing operations, required extensive preparation for major river assault operations. German estimates suggested Americans would need 3 weeks minimum to accumulate necessary bridging equipment and supplies for Rhine operations. General Oberst Johannes Blaskowitz informed OKW on March 1st that the Rhine barrier would provide essential time to reorganize German defenses. 7 days later, the 9th Armored Division captured the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen completely intact through tactical surprise. Within 24 hours, American engineers had reinforced the damaged structure and were running 1,000 vehicles per hour across the span. But Remagen represented just the beginning of American engineering capabilities. American engineers constructed 62 bridges across the Rhine River in 10 days of operations, completing one bridge every 4 hours around the clock. The longest construction, a 100-foot floating treadway bridge at Oppenheim, became operational in 10 hours from start to finish. These weren't temporary expedients, but engineered crossings capable of handling 70-ton tank transporters at full capacity. Major Klaus Weber was a German engineer officer observing Rhine crossings at Mainz. His post-war testimony captured German amazement at American engineering speed and efficiency. Americans threw bridges across the Rhine like ladders across a stream. Each bridge maintained its own traffic control system, maintenance crew, and anti-aircraft defense capability. They built redundancy into everything they constructed. If German forces destroyed one bridge, 2 others were already handling its traffic capacity without interruption. German demolition efforts became meaningless against such engineering abundance. By May 8, 1945, VE Day, American logistics achievements defied every precedent established in military history through centuries of warfare. Transportation Corps and Quartermaster Corps had delivered to combat forces in Europe verified shipments that boggled imagination. 46.7 million measurement tons of supplies crossed the Atlantic to European theaters. 1.37 million vehicles of all types reached combat units. 21 million jerry cans provided fuel distribution capability. 570,000 GMC 2.5-ton trucks were manufactured specifically for military operations. 2.4 billion individual rations fed American soldiers throughout the campaign. 800 million cigarette packages provided comfort items. 500 million candy bars supported troop morale. 11 billion rounds of ammunition supplied combat operations across all theaters. Monthly consumption rates by March 1945 reached unprecedented levels in military history. 1.2 million tons of supplies moved monthly to combat forces. 50 million gallons of gasoline fueled military vehicles. 8,000 tons of ammunition were consumed daily during major offensive operations. These numbers represented more than impressive statistics. They documented a fundamental revolution in the nature of warfare itself. The Wehrmacht, which prided itself on operational excellence developed over decades, discovered that tactical brilliance meant nothing against unlimited industrial capacity efficiently delivered to combat forces. Post-war interrogations of German commanders revealed unanimous recognition of American logistics supremacy that had defeated German military capabilities. These assessments, compiled by U.S. Army Historical Division, provide credible evidence of German military reactions to American supply achievements. General Field Marshal Albert Kesselring ranked among Germany's most capable military commanders throughout the war. His 1947 interrogation testimony acknowledged American logistics superiority that exceeded German calculations. American supply achievements exceeded German mathematical projections by factors of 5 to 10 across all operational categories. German defensive plans were based on assumed American limitations that simply didn't exist in reality. A German division operating at 50% supply levels was considered combat-ready according to Wehrmacht standards. American divisions refused to attack without 200% supply reserves available for sustained operations. General Heinz Guderian, acknowledged father of Blitzkrieg warfare doctrine, provided perhaps the most insightful analysis in his post-war writings about American logistics revolution and its impact on military thinking. Germans brought tactical innovation to modern warfare through rapid movement, combined arms coordination, and decisive action capabilities. Americans brought something more powerful, the ability to sustain military operations indefinitely through unlimited supply capability. Germans could win individual battles through superior tactics and training. Americans could feed entire armies continuously under any conditions. History demonstrated which capability mattered more for ultimate victory. General Franz Halder, former chief of the German General Staff, offered philosophical assessment during his work with U.S. Army Historical Division after the war. American logistics approach represented a conceptual revolution German military thinking didn't understand until too late. Germans viewed logistics as supporting military operations. Americans viewed military operations as delivery mechanisms for logistics capability. Americans didn't defeat German armies through superior tactical performance. They buried German resistance under abundance of materials and supplies. While German commanders focused on European theater operations, Japanese military assessments reached identical conclusions about American logistics supremacy across global operations. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto had predicted before Pearl Harbor the ultimate outcome of Pacific warfare. Japanese forces could run wild for 6 months against American opposition. Then American industrial capacity would overwhelm Japanese military capabilities through sheer volume of production and delivery. General Yoshijiro Umezu, Japanese Chief of Staff, provided complimentary testimony about American logistics dominance in Pacific operations. Japanese military studied American island hopping tactics, searching for exploitable weaknesses they could counter. They found no tactical weaknesses because tactics remained secondary to logistics superiority. Americans established supply bases, delivering more materials 5,000 miles from America than Japanese forces could deliver 50 miles from Japan itself. Every Pacific battle was decided before combat began, in American factories and cargo ships crossing the ocean. This Pacific validation proved the universal nature of American logistics revolution affecting global warfare. Whether fighting in European hedgerows or Pacific atolls, American forces maintained supply superiority that redefined military possibility. American logistics success stemmed from innovations that seemed mundane individually but proved revolutionary when combined systematically. Standardization represented the foundation of American supply efficiency. Every American vehicle used interchangeable parts manufactured to identical specifications. A truck damaged in Italy could be repaired using parts shipped from France without compatibility problems. German forces used equipment captured from multiple conquered nations, creating constant compatibility crises that reduced operational efficiency. Mechanization eliminated entire categories of supply requirements while increasing speed and capacity exponentially. While Germany relied on 750,000 horses for military transport, consuming 20,000 tons of fodder monthly, Americans used trucks exclusively. This eliminated biological supply requirements while increasing delivery speed and cargo capacity. Preservation technology pioneered military refrigeration, maintaining cold chains from America to frontline positions. Fresh meat, blood plasma, and medicines arrived in condition impossible for other armies, despite global distances. Communication systems enabled real-time supply coordination impossible under previous military doctrine. Americans laid 100,000 miles of telephone wire in France alone, coordinating supply movements with unprecedented precision. German forces relied heavily on motorcycle couriers, delaying supply responses by days. Specialization created purpose-built vehicles for every supply category, maximizing efficiency through focused design. Refrigerated trucks, tanker trucks, mobile workshops, each vehicle optimized for specific functions. Germans used generic vehicles for all purposes, reducing efficiency by half. An overlooked dimension of American logistics success involved unprecedented female participation in military operations. While German ideology confined women to traditional domestic roles, 150,000 American women served in Women's Army Corps, WWACE, with thousands directly supporting logistics operations. WACE personnel operated communication centers coordinating supply movements across entire theaters. They managed depot inventories using punch card systems, tracking millions of individual items. At ports of embarkation, women processed shipping manifests that German officers found incomprehensible. Lieutenant Colonel Oveta Culp Hobby commanded WAC operations in European theater. She commanded more personnel than most German regimental commanders, while managing logistics operations German generals couldn't comprehend. Her post-war report documented female contributions to American logistics supremacy. WAC personnel processed 40% of all supply documentation in European theater operations. They freed thousands of men for direct combat roles while improving logistics efficiency through specialized training programs. This gender integration doubled American military effectiveness by utilizing population resources Germany ideologically rejected completely. American logistics superiority became unintentional but devastating psychological warfare against German military morale. German soldiers who hadn't seen chocolate since 1942 could smell it on American prisoners of war during interrogations. Wehrmacht units surviving on sawdust-extended bread could hear American troops complaining about monotonous K rations containing more variety than German soldiers had seen in years. Captured German letters revealed psychological impact of American supply abundance on Wehrmacht morale. Gefreiter Wilhelm Hoffmann wrote to his wife in December 1944. His letter was found in a destroyed German bunker after Allied advance. Americans they captured were better fed as prisoners than German soldiers were as active combatants. American prisoners threw away half-eaten chocolate bars as waste. They used white bread for cleaning rifle mechanisms. German forces were fighting the entire industrial wealth of America, made manifest in unlimited supply. This demoralization extended from enlisted men to German military commanders at all levels. General der Infanterie Hans Schmidt testified in 1947 about psychological impact of American logistics superiority on German combat effectiveness. His soldiers fought courageously despite overwhelming material odds against their units. But when German soldiers discovered Americans were receiving ice cream and personal mail, while German forces lacked basic ammunition and medical supplies, military morale collapsed completely. You cannot maintain fighting spirit against such extreme disparity in living conditions. German officers who witnessed American logistics capacity weren't surprised when Marshall Plan was announced in 1947 for European reconstruction. They had personally observed American ability to deliver unlimited resources across impossible distances under combat conditions. The nation that could supply armies across oceans could certainly rebuild an entire continent through peacetime logistics. General Lucius Clay, military governor of American Occupation Zone, employed former Wehrmacht logistics officers to help manage German reconstruction efforts. Their experience with American supply methods proved invaluable for understanding reconstruction requirements. Colonel Hans von Greifenberg, former Chief of Staff to Army Group Center, worked with American administrators after the war. His later observations connected wartime and peacetime American logistics capabilities. Americans applied identical logistics principles to peace that had won the war: standardization, mechanization, communication systems, and abundance as operational philosophy. Marshall Plan represented military logistics redirected toward civilian reconstruction, using proven wartime methods. When North Korea invaded South Korea in June 1950, American forces initially struggled tactically against communist opposition. But within weeks, American logistics dominance reasserted itself using lessons learned during World War II. Former Wehrmacht officers serving as NATO advisors observed repetition of patterns they had witnessed from 1944 to 1945. General Adolf Heusinger had served as Wehrmacht operations chief before becoming chairman of NATO Military Committee. His observations connected Korean War logistics to World War II patterns. In Korea, Americans again demonstrated that modern warfare is won through supply superiority rather than tactical excellence. They delivered more tonnage to Pusan in 3 months than Germany had delivered to Stalingrad in 2 years of operations. Communist forces might win individual battles through tactical surprise, but they couldn't match American logistics capability for sustained operations. Harvard Business School began studying World War II. 2. American military logistics during the 1960s as foundation of modern supply chain management theory. Professor Theodore Levitt identified direct lineage from military innovations to business practices that dominated post-war commerce: containerization, just-in-time delivery, computerized inventory systems, total quality management, all originated in American military logistics from 1942 to 1945. D-Day operations didn't just liberate France from German occupation. They created modern business logistics methodology that dominated global commerce for decades. This civilian application multiplied strategic impact of wartime innovations far beyond military victory. The same principles delivering supplies to Normandy beaches later delivered global commerce efficiently, cementing American economic dominance throughout the Cold War era. Despite being wartime allies, Soviet commanders were equally stunned by American logistics capabilities they observed firsthand. Marshal Georgy Zhukov received American Lend-Lease supplies throughout Russian operations. His classified memoirs, released after 1991, revealed Soviet amazement at American industrial capacity applied to military logistics. Americans delivered 500,000 vehicles to Soviet forces, more than total Soviet wartime production across all factories. But more impressive was American delivery system efficiency and reliability. Americans shipped materials from Detroit to Vladivostok to Moscow with precision Soviet logistics couldn't achieve from Moscow to Stalingrad despite much shorter distances. Marshal Ivan Konev was more blunt in private correspondence about American capabilities and their implications. If Soviet forces fight America directly, they face not just American armies, but American factories and supply systems. Americans can deliver more supplies to opposite side of Earth than Soviets can deliver to their own borders. This represents not military superiority, but industrial transcendence of geographic limitations. American logistics success in World War II required processing unprecedented information volumes using technology that seemed futuristic to other nations. Punch card systems managing military supplies, operated largely by WAC personnel, represented the largest data processing operation in world history to that date. IBM machines tracked millions of items from factory production to individual foxholes. Every bullet, bandage, and boot was coded, counted, and tracked through computerized systems. This military requirement drove computer development that would define post-war technological advancement across all industries. Thomas Watson, Jr., IBM president and former Army Air Forces officer, connected military and civilian computer development directly. Military logistics requirements created both market demand and technological foundation for business computing revolution. The information age began in quartermaster depots processing military supply data. To understand the complete revolution American logistics represented, consider Normandy supply statistics compared to previous military operations throughout history. German invasion of France in 1940 averaged 3,000 tons daily across established rail networks. Supply crisis developed by day 20, despite captured French military stocks. Horse-drawn supply columns averaged 12 miles daily maximum movement. American operations in Normandy during 1944 averaged 15,000 tons daily across open beaches without port facilities. Continuous expansion continued through day 90 of operations. Motorized supply columns averaged 240 miles daily movement under combat conditions. This five-fold increase in supply tonnage combined with 20-fold increase in delivery speed created operational tempo Germany couldn't match through any tactical innovation. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, often critical of American tactical methods, delivered definitive assessment in his post-war memoirs. American logistics represented a war-winning weapon more decisive than any secret weapon Germany developed throughout the conflict. Americans could execute any military strategy because they could supply any operation regardless of distance or conditions. British forces had to design military strategies around logistics limitations that didn't apply to American operations. This freedom of action, purchased through industrial abundance, represented America's greatest military advantage over all opponents. Winston Churchill, with characteristic eloquence, summarized American achievement in terms that transcended military analysis. Americans demonstrated that in modern industrial warfare, the factory proves mightier than the fortress, the supply line stronger than the front line. Their permanent monument isn't battles won through tactical brilliance, but abundance delivered consistently under enemy fire. Charles de Gaulle, protective of French military honor, still acknowledged American logistics supremacy over European military traditions. Americans conquered not through superior generalship or tactical innovation, but through superior supply capability sustained across global distances. This achievement was perhaps more impressive than tactical victory. Anyone can learn military tactics through study and experience, but who can replicate such comprehensive industrial capacity applied to warfare? The American logistics revolution permanently transformed military thinking about warfare itself. Every subsequent military force has faced identical strategic challenge. Match American supply capabilities or accept strategic inferiority regardless of tactical skill. Gulf War, Afghanistan, Iraq, all demonstrated identical patterns established during World War II. American forces might face tactical challenges in specific engagements, but logistics supremacy ensures strategic victory through sustained operations. When Operation Desert Storm delivered 500,000 troops to Saudi Arabia, better supplied than Iraqi forces in their own country, it demonstrated World War II logistics revolution refined rather than replaced. When American forces in remote Afghan outposts received traditional Thanksgiving dinner in 2001, they benefited from systems pioneered on Normandy beaches 60 years earlier. On March 7, 1984, the 40th anniversary of Remagen Bridge capture, American and German veterans gathered at the memorial site. Former General Major Rudolf Langhäuser had commanded bridge defenses in 1945. He stood beside former Captain George Gibbs, whose company had rushed the span under fire. Langhäuser, then 75 years old, made remarkable admission about German military limitations. German forces prepared for American tanks, American artillery, American aircraft throughout defensive planning. They didn't prepare for American abundance delivered through unlimited supply capability. American logistics defeated German resistance before American soldiers arrived at battlefield. Any army that can deliver ice cream to frontline positions while German forces lacked bandages for wounded soldiers, such an army cannot be defeated through conventional military means, regardless of tactical skill. Gibbs, age 73, responded with typical American pragmatism that reflected national character. Any soldier asked to die for his country deserved at least one good meal first as basic human dignity. American military discovered that well-fed soldiers fight significantly better than hungry ones under all combat conditions. The two veterans shook hands across the memorial bridge, former enemies united in recognition of truth, transcending nationality and ideology. In industrial age warfare, supply superiority equals military supremacy regardless of other factors. American genius wasn't inventing new ways to fight enemy forces more effectively. American genius was inventing new ways to deliver everything needed for sustained operations. Americans hadn't revolutionized combat tactics or battlefield innovation. They had revolutionized military competition itself through industrial application. The magnitude of American logistics achievement in Europe can be fully understood through verified statistics that redefined military possibility permanently. Transportation assets deployed included 570,000 GMC 2.5-ton trucks manufactured specifically for military use. 21 million jerry cans delivered fuel distribution capability to Europe. 160,000 railway cars were shipped or constructed in theater. 2,000 locomotives were delivered for European rail operations. 62 Rhine River bridges were constructed in 10 days of intensive engineering. Supply throughput achieved peak daily delivery of 20,000 tons in September 1944. Total tonnage delivered reached 46.7 million measurement tons across all European operations. Fuel delivered via pipeline systems totaled 172 million gallons. Telephone wire laid for communications reached 100,000 miles. Mail delivered to maintain morale totaled 2.5 billion individual pieces. Human dimension statistics were equally impressive across all categories. 2 million troops received continuous supply regardless of location. 500,000 vehicles were maintained in operational condition throughout the campaign. 23,000 Red Ball Express drivers maintained supply delivery under all conditions. 150,000 WAC personnel supported logistics operations through specialized training. 75% of truck drivers were African American soldiers, proving essential to Allied victory despite segregation policies. These numbers represent much more than impressive statistics compiled after victory. They represent complete industrialization of warfare itself as strategic concept. Where German commanders perceived military operations supported by logistics systems, Americans perceived logistics operations executed through military organizational means. This conceptual revolution proved more decisive than any tactical innovation developed during the war. German commanders who initially scoffed at American supply requirements in 1944 lived to witness those same supply chains rebuild their shattered nation through Marshall Plan generosity. The logistics system that delivered destruction with unprecedented efficiency proved equally capable of delivering reconstruction with unprecedented generosity and effectiveness. Their initial dismissive attitude transformed to awe, then genuine respect, and finally, adoption of American methods. German military tradition that produced Clausewitz and Moltke, Schlieffen and Guderian ultimately produced its greatest strategic insight through comprehensive defeat. In the industrial age of mechanized warfare, supply lines don't merely support battlefield operations. Supply lines are the battle itself, determining ultimate victory. The Wehrmacht entered World War II believing logistics supported military operations through established doctrine. They discovered catastrophically that military operations simply delivered logistics capability to decisive points. Americans hadn't won through superior fighting ability or tactical innovation. They had won through superior feeding of combat forces. They hadn't conquered through brilliant tactics or strategic planning. They had conquered through unlimited trucks carrying unlimited supplies. They hadn't triumphed through military strategy or battlefield innovation. They had triumphed through systematic supply delivery that sustained operations indefinitely. As General Franz Halder concluded in his final assessment of American military capabilities and their impact on German defeat, German commanders asked how they could win individual battles against American opposition. American commanders asked how they could supply entire armies indefinitely under any conditions. Germans focused on immediate military operations and tactical problems. Americans focused on industrial processes and systematic delivery. History records conclusively which approach chose correctly for modern warfare. German commanders, who had initially scoffed at American supply chains in 1943, became their most eloquent witnesses by 1945. They had learned through devastating military experience a fundamental truth of modern industrial warfare. In the industrial age of mechanized combat, logistics capability doesn't merely support military power through traditional means. Logistics capability is military power expressed through industrial dominance. The rest, as they say, is supply.